Oh, yes. High praise for President Joe Biden from illegal migrants crossing the southern border illegally, as Customs and Border Protection agents have been overwhelmed with the surge of illegal border crossings. Last week, a record 12,000 people came into America in one day. Customs and Border Patrol sources telling Fox News that already over 535,000 migrants have been apprehended at the border for this fiscal year, which started in October. In addition, there have been more than 60,000 gotaways that have disappeared into the United States, with untold more entering undetected. Fox News is now learning that CBP officials privately told Arizona lawmakers that on average 5,000 migrants are released into the country every day. Joining me right now on how Biden's border crisis is impacting U.S. national security and the fight underway to stop it instead of sending more money to Ukraine is Kansas Senator Roger Marshall. Senator, it's good to see you. Thanks very much for being here today.
Good morning.
I want to get your take on this because, of course, you were on the Senate Homeland Security Committee as well as the Senate Budget Committee. How would you assess the border today? We got this new news this morning that 5,000 people are being released into the country every day.
Right. The border situation is getting worse every day. Record days, 10,000, 11,000, 12,000 people crossing our border every day. Remember, since Joe Biden became president, 10 million people have crossed the border illegally. And this is why FBI Director Wray is saying we've never had a more unsecure situation right now. All the lights are blinking red, all at the same time, the first time in his career. So this is getting steadily worse. Where are these 10 million people? At least 1.7 million gotaways. Where are those people? What are they doing? I think everybody should be watching their back.
We're looking at live pictures, I want to point out, of Lukeville, Arizona. This is happening right now. These are live pictures here at the border in Arizona. And, of course, we know that Customs and Border Patrol had to move agents from Lukeville to other areas of the border because all the border openings were basically seeing a massive surge. Can you tell us a little about what's going on in Texas and Arizona right now?
Right. So remember this, the Border Patrol officers can only process about 1,000 people a day. So they're being overwhelmed here. When 10, 11, 12,000 people are coming across the border, basically these Border Patrol agents turn into babysitters and social workers and nurses. And again, Maria, you've been to the border as well, but my last trip there, the Border Patrol officer said, if you could give us one thing, make policy changes. So that's why we're fighting with Joe Biden, saying no money for Ukraine until we fix the border. It's the border, the border, the border. We have to secure the border, and with some simple policy changes like asylum and parole changes, we can impact 75% of the people that are coming to our southern border right now. So policy change alone would fix the problem. Joe Biden could have done that yesterday, the week before. He won't do it, so we need to do it legally through Congress.
Well, I don't understand why. I mean, I'm going to get back to the fight in a moment because that's another head scratcher. The fact that this president will not make any changes at the border until you agree to give more money to Ukraine. We've already sent Ukraine about $110 billion, I believe. But what is this new element from Senator Dick Durbin? The other day, your colleague Dick Durbin proposed to allow illegal migrants to serve in the U.S. military. Are you serious?
Yeah, I think that's a non-starter for us. So we kicked military people out of the service because they refused the COVID vaccine, but we're going to let people that have broke the law into the military. Look, if you have a legal status, then I think there could be consideration. But look, if you're an illegal person in the United States, you can't go in the military right now. Again, these people have not been vetted. My goodness, there's been 70,000 people, aliens from foreign countries of interest as well. Hundreds of terrorists have crossed our border as well. That's not a good solution. Well,
you questioned Christopher Wray. I saw the hearing. You were great with Christopher Wray, but everything he said was quite scary. He said we are now at a peak in terms of the potential for a terrorist attack on the United States, on U.S. soil. He tried to blame the Hamas attack on Israel instead of the wide-open border. Then you've got these Chinese migrants coming in, flooding in, and when we've got pictures of these Chinese nationals coming in, they're largely military-aged men. I mean, can you just pick up and leave China and say, I'm going to go to America now? Don't you need approval? Is Xi Jinping directing these people to come into America and settle here?
We have to assume so. Look, it's a sad day when the Chinese Communist Party pays more attention to our southern border than the White House does. To your point, 24,000 Chinese nationalists have crossed the border under Joe Biden. Those people have now taken positions throughout the country. They're running the police stations here in New York City. Then they're keeping track of their own folks, making sure they're staying in order. They're the money collectors on the end of the fentanyl as well. They're setting up Confucius schools. They've infiltrated our research, and they're buying farmland next to military bases, all things you've reported on, Maria. I would just say it's worse than what you're saying. It's even worse than what the media is describing Chinese influence in this country. Not to mention, they're stealing $500 billion of intellectual property from us every year. 90% of the counterfeits that come into this country. They gave us a virus that killed 1 million people. The fentanyl is killing 300 people every day. Hundreds of thousands of people have died because of Chinese fentanyl under Joe Biden's watch. How does Joe Biden sleep at night? How does his DHS secretary sleep at night? I just don't understand this.
And of course, none of these issues ever come up when he meets with Xi Jinping. Again, none of this came out with his last meeting in Xi Jinping. And my question is why? Why won't he hold the Chinese Communist Party accountable? Why does he have this wide open border? There is a report about New York Republican Nicole Maliotakis in Staten Island. And she says that she got a portion of she submitted a request for the Freedom of Information law, and she got a portion of the contract between a nonprofit organization tasked with erecting emergency shelters for migrants. And she says she found in that contract that it obligates contractors of migrant shelters to hand out voter registration cards, to hand out, to help migrants in registering to vote and circulate campaign materials within the shelter premises. Is that what you know? Do you have any information about that? Is that the point here? To get these migrants to vote Democrat?
Absolutely. That's the only thing you could assume. If Joe Biden wanted to secure the border, he could secure it. But instead, that they think this is the future of the Democrat Party. They're doing this in all government institutions, whether it's a place you go to get your food stamps or whether it's a place you go to get free health care. They're infiltrating all those. They, meaning the Biden administration with taxpayer dollars, are out there trying to get people registered as well. So it is absolutely the only thing that makes sense. Again, they're willing to sacrifice 300 young Americans every day to build their own Democrat Party. But I think the good news is Americans they know what's going on, and that's why the Americans are leaving the Democrat Party in droves, and they're looking for a new leadership. There's a lot of why questions today, Maria, but I think ultimately the ultimate choice here will become November of 2024. Will Americans choose a new president? On
this fight in terms of money to Ukraine, where is this going? You all are leaving for the holidays next Thursday. Are you going to agree to send money to Ukraine, or are you going to hold the line until you see policy changes at the border? Yeah, I've never seen the Republicans so together, standing up, all 49 of us, voting against this big $100 billion supplemental package from the president and Chuck Schumer, unless we get meaningful border security. And I don't see that happening. I think that Chuck Schumer, Joe Biden bow to their immigration people. That's the immigration lobby. It's the same group of people that are pro-Palestine, and they don't want to take this vote. We've given the Democrats 4 opportunities to vote for standalone Israel funding. They voted it down every time. We could attack every one of these 4 prongs of this riddle, the supplemental riddle, one at a time, and I think figure out solutions. But none of it happens until we secure the border. It's the border, it's the border. Yeah. Now, all right. Real quick before you go, Senator, I know you were at the Young Republicans event last night in New York City where former President Trump spoke. We have a soundbite of that. I want to get your reaction to what the crowd did after he said this. Watch. Okay.
These are not indictments in the traditional sense. These are Biden indictments against this is just against a political opponent. And with that, he's opened up a Pandora's box that may never let our country be the same. They've opened up a Pandora's box, and I only can say to Joe is, be very careful what you wish for, because what you've done is a terrible thing. Wow, Senator. Will Donald Trump be the nominee? He is. He is the presumptive nominee. I think he's ahead by 50 or 60 points. And I remember what Bob Dole always told me when there was tough decisions. He said, go back and listen to the people of Kansas. The Republicans of Kansas want Donald Trump to be their nominee and to be their next president as well. I would just caution people, though, as they're listening to all this rhetoric. This is an hour-and-a-half long speech last night. And by the way, what came through to me was Donald Trump loves New York City, that this is his home. He's so proud of New York City, and he's so upset that it's gone to
H-E-double-L, right? So he's so upset about this, but I'm reminded what Newt Gingrich told me just like months after Donald Trump was elected in 2016. He said, look, Donald Trump's going to be a third Andrew Jackson, a third Teddy Roosevelt, and a third Barnum and Bailey. So President Trump spends a lot of time just shining a flashlight and letting that left national media chase the flashlight a lot. So I wouldn't overreact to every word he says, but he's going to be the president of national security. He's going to secure the border. He's going to make the economy strong. His enemies will fear us and respect us.
All right, Senator, thanks very much. Kansas Senator Roger Marshall, we so appreciate your time this morning. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Maria.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.